Hello and welcome to Moments in History. I'm Linda Shenton Matchett, author, speaker, and history geek. As many of you already know, during my research I often unearth intriguing and little-known facts about World War II that I love to share. Today I'll be talking about resistance by committee. Now I've worked on a lot of committees over the years, and you probably have too. Some were fantastic. Everyone pulled their own weight. We accomplished what we set out to do. Then there are those other committees, you know, the ones where a large percentage of the folks either don't show up or when they do, they're absent in body. The group barely gets anything done. Would you be surprised to discover that the French decided to form a committee to handle their resistance activities against the German occupying forces? I certainly was. Various resistance movements arose in France almost immediately upon the occupation in June of 1940. However, they were relatively marginal. From early isolated acts to the beginning of the armed struggle, the range of attitudes and actions was vast. Listening to the BBC broadcast, public disapproval, strikes and demonstrations, wearing of the Lorraine Cross, sabotage, attacks on the occupants' property, and propaganda. Taking part in resistance activities was filled with consequences for those who chose to do it. North of the demarcation line, they were up against fierce repression by the German occupying forces, and in the South, they ran the risk of being considered traitors. The development of the resistance movement accelerated in response to the Wehrmacht's attack on the USSR in June of 1941, which brought in a huge number of communists on board. The following year, many partisans joined after the mass arrest of Jews. The final straw for the public seemed to be the invasion of the southern zone by German troops in November of 1942, coupled with the implementation of legislation establishing compulsory labor service. However, all sorts of political discrepancy resulted from the various ways in which the resistance movements came together. Think about it. The historical context brought unlikely bedfellows. People who were worlds apart before the war were now united for a common cause. Conflicts were not long in arising between communists, non-communists, anti-communists, de Gaulle followers, and anti-Gaullists. The large number of resistance members combined with the conflicts brought on by political differences caused Maquis groups to form that were mostly unorganized and unrelated to each other. This lack of coordination made them less effective in their actions against the Nazi occupiers. So even though he was exiled in London, Charles de Gaulle was recognized as the leader of the French government, and he began to seek to form a committee to unify the resistance movements, knowing they would be more effective. On January 1st, 1942, he delegated the task to Jean Moulin, a high-profile member of the resistance. It took Moulin nearly 6 months, but he finally pulled together representatives of the 8 main French resistance movements, members of 6 of France's major political parties, and the 2 large pre-war trade unions. On May 27, 1943, they met. Calling themselves the National Council of Resistance, and that's the English translation because I will not embarrass myself by trying to pronounce the French name, which is abbreviated CNR. The group's mission was to direct and coordinate the different movements of the French resistance. The armed groups stemming from the various resistance organizations were unified within the French internal forces, also called the FFI, under the command of General Koenig, operating from London, which, by the way, played a major part of the liberation of Paris. After Moulin's capture and death, the council decided for security reasons to end the plenary sessions, and they created an executive office of 5 members. Each member represented his own group and 2 others. The new office was under the direction of Alexandre Perotti, Delegate General, and Georges Bidault, the new president. In March 1944, the CNR also determined economic and social reforms that were going to be brought into effect after the liberation. We will never know what went on behind the scenes, but this is one committee that definitely got their job done. Do you want to know more about the French resistance? The Museum of National Resistance at Chamonix-sur-Marne holds one of the largest collections of the resistance organization's secret publications and archives, equipment, and artistic works. The center holds some 500,000 items of all kinds, donated by public organizations, associations, French and foreign individuals, or acquired by the museum. Visit their website to find more information. Thank you so much for stopping by Moments in History. If you have any stories that you'd like to share about the French resistance or other resistance that occurred during World War II, please share them in the comments below the video. But as always, keep it clean. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss another one. And click that bell to be sure to get a notification each time a new one is uploaded. You can find me across social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on Moments in History.